Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I am here with Christapher Estep of Ameriflex, and today we are going to be talking about ICHRAs. ICHRAs, as you know, we've discussed previously, there's been a lot of conversation and a lot of health industry publications. And so what's up with an ICHRA? What is an ICHRA, by the way, Chris?
No, I mean, an ICHRA, if you really break down to its terms, it's an individual coverage health reimbursement arrangement. Big grand answer there, but in reality, what it is, it's a tool for employers to offer benefits to their employees without really being held to the unpredictability of group health, right, or even the cost of group health. It's allowing these employers that never offered benefits before to get into the space, or employers that were getting priced out of this equation to get into it. So the employer establishes an allowance for the employees. The employees go out and pick a coverage that fits for them, and then they just use the employer's allowance to pay for it on a monthly basis. So really, when you want to break it down, that's really what it is from the outline perspective.
So ICHRAs have been around since 2018. I think they were passed into law January 1st, 2020. Mm-hmm. And then ICHRAs, they've been around, which is another version of ICHRA, for smaller groups, been around since, I think, 2016. Why this emerging market? I mean, traditional group employer-sponsored health insurance, as we know, is getting more expensive. Right. And, that seems to be the reason for driving this new concept, if you will, of ICHRAs. And it just seems like it's a perfect, the employer decides how much money they want to set aside for their employees. The employees individually go shop the marketplace for their health insurance coverage. Why isn't every small business owner or even large business owner, why are they not all on board with ICHRAs if this gives you the flexibility, it sounds like?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think a lot of it is just the unknown, right? A lot of these folks, these larger organizations, or even just the broker community from an honest perspective, they know group health. They stick with what they know. And ICHRA is a complicated acronym that they can't really pronounce, right? But at the end of the day, it's a really simplified plan and approach to this. You asked why all of a sudden the escalation into this. Well, employers are finally starting to say enough's enough. We've seen groups year over year get these premium increases, and they're actually doing the math. 10% one year doesn't seem too bad, but the next year, if you have 20, well, now it's looking at 30% within 2 years.
Right.
And then that's just a small scale. We've seen groups even higher than that. I had a group that had a 96% increase going into next year, and it's just not sustainable. So from a broker community, being able to talk about this gives you sustainability with your groups, because this is the one product I've seen in all of the space that I work within that the employer is the one presenting this to their brokers. And if the broker is not adept at talking about this, the employer group will find somebody who is. There is a statistic I saw that said, I think 86%, I could be wrong on that number, but 80-something% of employer groups that are on an ICHRA are doing so without their original broker they started this with. That's a terrifying number if you're a broker, right? You got to have the ability to talk about this because it is growing. We're kind of at this like incline. If you're thinking like a tidal wave, we're at the build. You don't want to be missing out on it when it hits the top of it. So that's where we are right now. Folks that are evolving into the space, folks that are adapting into this ICHRA, they're the ones that are really driving this. They're the ones that are really kind of being successful during this time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one of the research I saw through Deft Research, they put out a statistic back in April in 2025, and it was, I think, 9 out of 10 employers that switched to an ICHRA when it came to renewal time stayed on an ICHRA.
Right.
90%. Yeah. Right, like that is really driving the change, wouldn't you say? I
would say absolutely, because there is satisfaction from the employer perspective, but there's satisfaction from the employee perspective. I think even another report came out that said 92% of the employees that are on an ICHRA are satisfied with the ICHRA itself. And the reason being is because they drive the narrative. They pick the plan that works for them. I mean, you could sit in a room of any type of employer organization and ask them, hey, raise your hand if your benefits plan, the 3 or 4 options your employer's giving you, does that fit your life specifically, or are you fitting your life within that mold? And I promise you, they're going to tell you that they're just making their life fit within that space. ICHRA gives them the ability to pick something that works for them and their family, and you can't get that anywhere else.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think we're looking at the same numbers as far as the research goes, because ICHRAs are still relatively new. We're still getting, a little behind the curve as far as the data and the statistics. But another statistic I saw, they predict within the next 3 to 5 years, almost 20 million, 18 to 20 million working class Americans will be on an ICHRA funded plan, or through an employer. So I think this is not a fad. No. They like to say it is, because it's still relatively new, and this too will pass. Our traditional group department, they don't want to touch ICHRAs or ICHRAs. And so here with the brokerage, we're like, well, we don't want to be on the cutting edge, but we want to be on the first wave of this. And, I think I would recommend all FMOs like us, get into this market, because you see it with the health carriers. You have all of the major health carriers. You even have Health Sherpa that's going to have an ICHRA, division within their platform, which Health Sherpa is the alternative to healthcare.gov to use to enroll individuals and families to the marketplace. So I see this as a great opportunity. And one of the things we had to come up with as an organization is we need a TPA. We need a partner. And I remember doing a lot of research with our national health sales director, Mike Papuk. We vetted out probably about 12 to 15 ICHRA TPAs, and we came back to you guys because the conversations that we had with Jeff and your team were absolutely phenomenal. One of the biggest things was you're independent operated. Everything you've done, you've built in-house, right? And that's kind of who we are as well. Why is Ameriflex a good fit for a lot of brokers out there?
I would say, we're a great fit because we're not just an ICHRA administrator, right? I think when you look at this space, there are some other regulatory needs within an ICHRA that these other pop-up, and I call them pop-up shops because you can cast a stone down the street, you'll hit 12 to 20 different new ICHRA administrators that are popping up left and right. Problem being is they only focus on the ICHRA aspect of things. And ICHRA is still a COBRA eligible plan. It is still required to have ERISA documents. It's required to have all that. And if you as an ICHRA administrator can't provide that and you're telling folks to go outsource it, you're adding so many hands in the cookie jar, you're going to have so much issues. With Ameriflex, we can do all of it in-house. We do FSAs, we do COBRA, we do SPD wrap documents, we do federal notices, we do ICHRA administrations with direct carrier payment features. We have all of this that we've developed in-house, and we've been able to develop in-house because we're independent. We don't make our growth based off of our investors. We make our growth based off of our broker communities like yourselves and our employees that stay with us. And we have a 98% retention rate of our clients. And at any given moment, if you're partnering with somebody, it's important to look at service, right? How quickly are they getting back to my clients? Because how good are they if they're just going to go MIA after the sale? You can go onto our website at any given moment, see what our response metrics are. We update that on a monthly basis. We're not hiding behind stuff. No, we put it in the forefront because we're proud of it. And really with Ameriflex, you can't match the package we have with our bundled ICHRA platform. You get the ICHRA administration, you get a care navigation tool that's going to help the employees understand who to go to if they want to go see a specialist, if they want to go see a doctor, who's my in-network, who's my out-of-network option. We have a tool that does that for them, for their individual plan. We have COBRA built in at no cost. We have your SPD wrap and your federal notices built in at no cost, all at a very aggressive price point. We're not looking to gouge you like these other ICHRA administrators. We have this price point because we developed it ourselves. Why are we going to try to pass any costs off to anyone else? Right. We're going to make sure you have a good partner, and that's really what you get.
Yeah, no, and customer service was the first thing that jumped out to me. I thought it was a joke when I heard we return voicemails within 59 minutes. We return emails within, I think, 6 hours or something. I tested the theory, and sure enough, I got a call back within like 30 minutes. Yeah. And so it's you're broker friendly. You're customer friendly. I've walked through a couple of the early cases that we had through Ameriflex, and you're hands-on with everything. You're especially for agents that are new to the ICHRA space, they need that hand-holding. Right. And you guys have been exceptional as far as leading them in that path. The other part, agent keeps AOR, right? That was a big part when I was vetting out potential ICHRA partners. Was, the startup cost, the PEPM, right, per employee per month, I mean, it got up to like $50, $60 PEPM. It's just like, wow, that's insane. But no, y'all are you're competitively priced, and just the customer service, I think, with Ameriflex is really jumped off the page for Mike and myself. I mean, and you guys have been a wonderful partner, and we're only a couple months into this. And I think for brokers, our agents in particular, if you go to our website, thebrokerageinc.com, we have Ameriflex's landing page on the website. Reach out to your regional sales contact. They're there for you. Moving forward with ICHRAs, do you see this becoming like federally regulated at some point? And like maybe down the road here? I know with the Trump administration right now, we're still in a government lockdown. It's, October 21st, 22nd. And the big topic right now is the enhanced subsidies, right? And we mentioned earlier the traditional group health insurance about to become very unaffordable for a lot of employees, giving employers the option of an ICHRA. Because if it becomes federally regulated, correct me if I'm wrong, we're now looking at potential to have federal tax credits as well as state tax credits maybe that could go to the employer to help fund the ICHRA. Yep. Is that something you still see on the horizon at some point?
Yeah, so, the Big Beautiful Bill was a very interesting legislation that they were trying to introduce. I think they were trying to introduce a lot at one time, and you see it get, denied on the floor. But I don't see that as being the end point. I think that was more so, and we were talking about it kind of earlier before this, where I think it was more so of an introduction of what they want to do down the line, but they just want to see what the market feedback would be on that. So they introduced it all at once, gets denied, it's fine. But I think what we'll start to see, and this is just, you never really know, right? You could just speculate. But what we're speculating is that I think that it's going to start getting little bits of that introduced as this keeps growing, because I don't see it getting cut away, right? It's lasted two presidents. It's going to keep growing within, and the need is there, the want is there. So if it does get federally regulated, we wouldn't be shocked by that. And if I'm just speaking presumptuously, we're almost expecting it, right? Because at some point, it's like you just kind of have to.
The flexibility with an ICHRA, you have let's say you're an employer, you have maybe a 10 employees, right? And you have like maybe a 64, 65-year-old that's nearing Medicare age, nearing retirement age, and maybe they take a lot of medications and they're needing a lower deductible health plan, which is going to be a little more expensive, versus someone who's in their 20s or 30s, not taking any medications, perfect health, they just need catastrophic coverage. Can the employer determine, like based on that 64 or 65-year-old and that 20-something or 30-something, can they set different dollar amounts for each of those employees? Or is it, I'm going to set aside $500 a month for everyone, for their staff? Like,
no, that's a very excellent question. I think, with the ICHRA, yes, the employer can determine how they want to space that out, but they have to do it a little kind of regulated, right? So there are some 11 approved classes if you want to class out an ICHRA, but if you're looking to do different rates per age, that's not a class, that's just organizing your employees. So if you want to do age rating, you can. The one thing to keep in mind is that you have to meet a 3-to-1 ratio. So that just means that the oldest employees, allowance can't be 3 times the youngest. So that's the one caveat to it. But outside of that, yeah, you can space it out if you want. If you want to do classes, I usually recommend 4 classes if you want to do age rating. So 20 to 30, 31 to 40, 41 to 50, 51 on up. Or if you want to space it out even more than that, you can do different amounts from there and kind of regulate it from there. You can even get a little more creative and have your ICHRA cover not just the medical premiums, but also have it cover Medicare premiums too. So now you have an option for those employees as well.
Like an FSA?
Yeah, you can stand up an FSA as well with it. You can also have your ICHRA cover just those 213D expenses as well. You can even stand an HSA up with an ICHRA if you wanted to. There is just limitless possibilities within this that you can really build kind of something that mirrors like a group plan without the risk of a group plan for the employer and giving the flexibility for the employees.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And that's what when I talk to agents, our broker partners, one thing that always comes up every conversation when we're talking about ICHRA is it group? Is this group insurance? It's on a group chassis, but it's individualized, right? And I think that being able to differentiate the two, like you said with ICHRA, it's an acronym.
Yeah.
It's a big acronym, just dissecting exactly what it is. is the reason for the confusion, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, people look at it like it's a totally separate entity. And if you really kind of want to look at it, kind of is. But at the end of the day, it's a group plan. It's just individualizing that group plan. It's essentially giving each employee their own keys to their own group plan. If you want to look at it like that, that's the way I like to look at it. Each employee is controlling their own group plan, but it's individualized for them. So it's going to have the same regulations that a group plan would be, but it just won't have that same sticker price associated with it.
Right. More options, more flexibility. Yep. Can you touch on a little bit what TAPS is?
Yeah, TAP it stands for the Ameriflex Alternative Plan. So we have a standalone ICHRA price point where it's just our ICHRA administration with the direct-to-carrier payments, and it's great. It's absolutely great. But if you want to have something that's completely that meets all compliance requirements within an ICHRA, that's your COBRA, that's your SPD wrap, that's your federal notice, that's going to be TAP because we built this chassis to it's going to be like a compliance package disguised as an ICHRA package because you get our ICHRA administration with the direct-to-carrier feed payments, all of that. You're going to get COBRA built in at no cost. And the reason why it's built in at no cost is it is required to have if you're an employer that's 20 lives or more. But let's be honest, an employee is not going to take COBRA more often than not if they get terminated because why pay that extra 2%?
Right.
But that doesn't matter if you have a disgruntled employee who files a wrongful termination lawsuit. 9 times out of 10, the first question the lawyer asks is, let me see your COBRA notice. Just because it doesn't make sense for someone to enroll in it does not negate the ability or the requirement to have to offer it. So we put it into our service at no cost with this TAP plan, just so that way you're protected. We'll control all the notices and everything. But then even further than that, your SPD wrap document's still required. There's no group size specific that will void you from having to file that. You could be 2 lives and still have to do it. So we put that in there at no cost for you. Federal notices, if you're an ALE group, that's 50 or more full-time equivalent employers, you have to file that too. We're going to put that in there as well at no cost. So all of that is encompassing within this plan, including the care navigation for your employees, give them a very robust benefits package, all for a very aggressive price point.
Love it. Yeah. I mean, that's a game changer because now you're getting to add additional benefits, right? Yeah. That you don't get just shopping individually through the marketplace. As far as, with Ameriflex, what would you say is your greatest strength as far as like a company, a provider, a vendor, and what kind of separates you from the other TPAs? Would you say the most?
I would say our greatest strength is just our time in the market, right? We've been doing all of these other products for group health this entire time. We're not just somebody who saw the trend of ICHRA and just said, hey, let's get behind it. We've been kind of administering things since 2019 and evolving it as we've been developing while still working in the group space for those group brokers. That's why we can still offer all the compliance needs. And that's something that we truly know that we need to do because I've sat in on some calls and I had a call with a client that brought me and a competitor on. It was a very interesting phone call. And the client asked the broker, hey, or the other carrier, hey, what about COBRA for this? And the first thing he said was, it's the Wild West with this. I wouldn't worry about it. Well, just because he wouldn't worry about it doesn't mean you shouldn't. And it dumbfounded me because we understand that this is all required, but we're not going to bleed your wallet to give it to you because we've been doing this since 1998, since our inception. So our greatest strength is not only just our sustainability in the space, but it's also our service. We have a 98% retention rate of our clients. We have some of the fastest response times in the industry, and we have the highest net promoter score in the industry. And really, I love that net promoter score because it's not just how likely a broker is to refer us to other brokers, it's how likely our clients are to refer us to other clients. And the industry average that they're really proud of sits around 64%. If you've ever been in school, that's failing, right?
Right.
Ours is sitting around 86 and 90 is our score there. So if you're proud with 60%, those brokers that are touting that, they're failing you. Ameriflex, we have ours, and it's 4 times the industry average. So, and you've seen it with our response metrics. We're a true partnership. We're not just here to sell you something. We're here to collaborate with you as a broker. We're here to help educate your clients. And at the end of the day, you bring us to the dance, we're going to dance with you as the partner.
Love it. Love it. One of the things that got brought up recently in a conversation was, say we operate here in Texas, but say you have employees in other states. Mm-hmm. Is an ICHRA still a viable solution?
Absolutely. Yeah. Geographical location is an approved class by the IRS. So, you want to stand up an ICHRA and you want to give allowances. Let's say you have folks in Florida, you have folks in Texas. The Florida folks may be a little more expensive. Hey, you can stand up a different allowance to those folks in Florida and have a different amount for Texas, because geographical location is an approved class out option for them. So you can even get more creative. Let's say group health is working great for your Texas folks, but it just doesn't make sense for your Florida. Stand up an ICHRA just for your Florida employees, because that's still an approved class, the class amount.
Yeah. Did you hear that, folks? You could have a traditional group health plan for some of your employees, and then you can have an ICHRA as well. So again, the flexibility, the diversity that an ICHRA brings to the table is truly unmatched. And I just want to wrap it up with saying, I went from this year not really understanding what an ICHRA or a QSERA was, which is kind of an alternative. Now, to our Medicare and ACA producers, and then maybe they just sell life insurance or they sell, other types of insurance, they may not get in front of ALEs or large employer group employers. But for maybe 2 to 5 lives, restaurant owners, hairdressers, barbershop owners, this is more of our demographic. How would you encourage our broker partners to get comfortable with, understanding the concept of ICHRA and how it works, but also going to these business owners that are desperate for solutions because of the rising cost of traditional group?
Yeah.
That's one of the most attractive things when you're shopping or you're trying to get hired somewhere. What's the employee benefits package, right? And you base a lot of your decisions off of that. Is there like a 401k? Is there health insurance offering? Is there short-term disability? Those sorts of things. What would you tell our broker partners as far as getting comfortable with approaching these business owners that are looking for solutions they don't know where to turn to?
Yeah, no, I love that question. Start the conversation. Get into what they're currently paying. Ask them, is this sustainable? Has this worked for you before? If they're not offering anything, ask them, hey, would you be interested in a plan that you can give coverage to your employees without breaking your budget and without you as the employer having to have any fiduciary role within it? Does that sound interesting to you? Because I promise you 9 times out of 10, any organization that has problems with recruitment or retention, if you say, hey, I can offer a benefits plan and it's not going to blow my budget and I don't really have to do much besides establishing a contribution amount and what I wanted to cover, let's do it. And ICHRA does that. We can help with some of your agents if they had questions about, hey, do you want a conversational sales script? Yeah, we can help you with that. That's no problem. We talk this product all day. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to, as the employer, what do you want your plan to do? How do you want it to operate, right? What is your wish list for that? Because if you have a wish list, I want it to be simple. I want it to be kind of a copy and paste year over year, and I don't want it to break my budget. All that marries within an ICHRA. I would almost say that it would be very hard to find a scenario in which it doesn't fit an ICHRA. So just talk to them about it. If they're on a group plan, ask them, what have you seen increases? What was your increase the year before? What's your increase this year? Because it's not just what you're facing for this current year. That's blinders. You got to look back at what you were paying previously, what you originally paid it for. We have case studies that talks about just the sheer savings we brought on for some groups. I brought a case study here. There are 77 lives, but they're a nursing home. And nursing homes are fantastic for ICHRAs. We have a massive book of business for nursing home folks. But the previous year, they saw a 49% increase. The year going in that they were renewing for, 28%. Now that's a 77% increase in their premium just in 2 years. Wow. It's insane. So their employer cost was $300 for single, $2,250 for family. That's $1,416 that they're paying for coverage projected. They moved to an ICHRA. The yearly cost dropped to $448,000 with a savings of $654,000. Now, that's fantastic for the employer, but how are you helping the employees out?
Right.
Here's how. The employee's cost from deductions to finance this group plan dropped to $117.06 a month. That was a savings of $182 a month for each employee. So there's savings for both parties. And I think it's just having that conversation. Loop Ameriflex in, because if you're bringing this up to a new group, you want to position an ICHRA, you may not be well versed in it yet. Let us be that kind of tool for you. We're that resource. We can jump on calls with you and your client. We're going to pitch it with you. We're going to help educate them on it. And what you'll find is if you do about 3 or 4 of these with us, it just becomes common knowledge for you. And now you're a little more adept going into it on your own. And you just come to Ameriflex when you have a case you want to close.
Yeah. And one thing about business owners is they talk with other business owners.
Absolutely.
That referral piece comes in, which is clutch. And no, that's a great study right there as far as real life scenarios. One last question I had, do you need to get certified? How do you, or what do you, your license, you have your life accident health license. Is there a certification to sell an ICHRA?
No, not at all. Now, you'll have to be licensed in the state that you're looking to do enrollments through. But to sell an ICHRA, no, not at all. Because you're essentially just coming to Ameriflex to do the administration. So you just start the conversation. We'll administer the ICHRA for you and just help you maintain that client.
Love it. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining us. Reach out to Ameriflex, reach out to the brokerage. Make sure, you have to be contracted with the ACA carriers because these are individual enrollments for the employees. But just reach out to us, and Ameriflex has been a great partner. We believe in them, and I just want to thank you, Christapher. Thank you so much for coming by this morning, and we will talk to you guys later. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.